Okay, so the discussion on whether Idaho should have mandatory minimum sentences for anyone convicted of trafficking of fentanyl has been one of the most hotly debated bills so far this session. Testimony on House Bill 406 extended over 2 days in the House Judiciary Rules Committee. Yeah. Today, it took nearly 2 hours to debate it on the House floor. Joe, you watched that, and a lot of that discussion today was about, well, this isn't the best option, but as a lot of the lawmakers said, something has to be done to curtail the drug crisis here in Idaho.
Yeah, and it's one of those situations where there's not going to be a perfect solution here, but some lawmakers think there could be a better one. Others say, well, we just got to get this done. So, yes, it did pass, though, the Idaho House after 2 separate votes, one of them being a procedural vote. But serious discussions about sending the idea for amendments. Lawmakers opted not to. In the end, though, legislators in the House appear to agree with the concept of perfect being the enemy of good. Members of the Idaho House dug deep to start the week, debating if the so-called mandatory minimum legislation centered on fentanyl is a great step to save lives and to battle the drug cartels, or if it's an overly broad concept of deterrence. Bill co-sponsor Representative Ted Hill believes that House Bill 406 does send a clear message of deterrence by creating a new crime of trafficking in fentanyl for knowingly manufacturing, delivering, or possessing 4+ grams of various fentanyl-related substances. The penalties would be mandatory minimum prison sentences of 3 to 10 years. The legislation would also create the crime of drug-induced homicide for someone that violates the trafficking law, provides that controlled substance to someone who then dies as a result of taking it. And that penalty would be life imprisonment. A message to drug dealing operations.
Don't come here, and that's the word, and it is a real thing. They go someplace else. Cartels go to where it's easy business. That's how it will go.
Lawmakers made an effort to pass similar legislation in 2023, but it got hung up on a similar debate. Some lawmakers say there is no time left to wait.
We've already waited a year and lost Idahoans to this deadly drug. We need to act today. It may not be perfect, it may need some tweaking, but most bills that come through this body get tweaked and changed after they get passed.
To put fentanyl up on the same level, at least on the same level with heroin, I couldn't be happier to vote for this.
Critics of the legislation made it clear. They think that fentanyl and the related deaths are a major problem in Idaho. The Idaho Department of Health and Welfare reports that in the year 2022, most recent data, at least 188 Idahoans died from a fentanyl overdose. So those critics argue that the legislation is not a strong deterrent and can actually criminalize people who this legislation isn't meant to target.
This bill demands incarceration without making any distinction between dealers and users, without making any distinction between first-time people who made a mistake and serious bad guys. It doesn't even really require knowledge. It requires that you have knowledge that you possess something, but you could think you possess something else and not even know it's been laced with fentanyl, and you would still get caught up in this mandatory minimum.
It's important that we have the discussion rather than rush to judgment on a bill that I think could be improved by a couple of fairly minor tweaks, minor in that they wouldn't affect the deterrence, in my opinion, of this bill, and they would greatly enhance the protections that otherwise we're giving away.
This just puts drug dealers further away from the transactions and makes the people who are profiting from the drug trade safer, while they use the drug users to make their deliveries and put them in front of these mandatory minimums.
This is not just a drug offense. This is going after the drug traffickers. That's what it's focused on. That's who's going to get caught up, and that's who we want. As to traffickers locked up, well, cry me a river. There are so many victims of this and their families. That's who we're here to protect.
It's not a perfect bill. Perfect kills good. And this is a good bill. If I have a bad kid, I'd rather get collect calls for 5 years than if I have from the penitentiary, than if I have a good kid and I get 1 call from the coroner.
So high-stakes debate on the House floor. Again, it advances. It will now start over on the Senate side. There was a lot of good back and forth and a lot of talks about amendments to the legislation in the House. But, Brian, ultimately, lawmakers passed it as is, and we'll see if there's any changes in the Idaho Senate. We know that there are lawmakers in the House that were hoping to see changes, but still, it passes.
And it was a lot of confliction there between some of those that ended up voting yes. It passed 55-13.
Yeah.
Even though people were like, I don't like this.
And I think in committee, too, is reflected that there are some lawmakers that realize it's an election season and they understand what their vote means.
Yep. Let's talk about that right now, shall we?
Yes.